All right. What's going on, folks? Your friendly neighborhood old soldier coming to you today from Robeson County, North Carolina, where it's hot, followed by more hot, followed by even more hot. So I'm staying inside. The heat's been taken out of me the last few days. I'm staying inside. Anywho, anyhow, anyway, this is for you, Brother Kyle. I know it's been a few days of kind of took myself an extended weekend, if you will. We've been keeping our grandson. Mrs. Old Soldier's on her way to get him now. We're going to get to keep him again tonight. Apparently, the apartment complex my daughter's living in, the maintenance people have an issue with cleaning out the air conditioning vent system. And the walls, I guess, are thin, so there's smoke from the neighbors' adjoining apartments. And, you know, that other kind of smoke that I don't care for, the wacky tobacco smoke, odors in the hallway, and it's creeping into their apartment, and it's causing my little grandson, baby Leon, to get sick. So, Papa Old Soldier may wind up going over and putting a boot in somebody's fourth point of contact. But right now they're trying to handle it. So, anyway, we're getting back on our 45 points of how the communists plan to take over America, and we are on points 10 and 11. 10 states that allow all Soviet satellites individual representation in the UN. That did happen. Granted, they're not Soviet satellites anymore, but there's still what I call a speed bump for a large-scale invasion, whether it's coming from the west or from the east. But more importantly, 11, promote the UN as the only hope for mankind. It's all we ever hear anymore. If its charter is rewritten, demand that it be set up as a one-world government with its own independent armed forces. And what we see there is that some communist leaders believe the world can be taken over as easily by the UN as by Moscow. And there's some validity to that. Okay? You see, anytime the UN's gotten involved, they don't always necessarily take the side of freedom. Old soldier, you can't say that. The UN's such a great organization. You know, look at what they've done around the world. Yeah, they've gotten many Americans and other allied nations' service members killed. Yeah, I said it. I will also say this. Their humanitarian efforts, however misguided they've been, have tried to help the populations of some people. But at the end of the day, they've allowed warlords, dictators, tyrants to run roughshod over the actual democratically elected governments in the countries that we will say are in conflict. Okay? We can look at what goes on around the world on a daily basis to see that and see it happening. We see issues and instances where the UN will go in and establish a peacekeeping force only to be overrun and then have to pull out or give in to the demands of, like I said, warlords, tyrants, and dictators. Okay? And for the communists that are in the world today that are trying to take over this world, that plays into their hand. Because when they do that, all they're doing is creating a more unstable region. So when the forces of communism get strong enough, they can roll right in and take over. Okay? That is what we're up against here, folks. That is what we're up against here. Now you're saying, well, what do you mean by that, old soldier? All right. Let's take a look at the feckless, worthless leader we have in the White House right now. Thief in chief and his Jezebel whore vice president. We both know they're sock puppets with Obama's hand up their ass, who in turn has George Soros up his. With that being said, Joe Biden has already mentioned and had already talked with the UN potentially about the idea of bringing in an independent UN military force to help enforce certain gun control laws if he can get them passed. Just the mere talk of the United States President bringing in UN forces to our country ought to scare the living hell out of each and every one of you. Think about that for a second. And the communists will use the UN to their advantage every time. Okay? Case in example, the war in Southwest Africa, which is now in Namibia. The Soviets had a big hand in how that all played out at the UN level when the elections came into that country. Okay? Soviets supplied a lot of those guerrillas that fought against the Southwest African Territorial Government and the South African government. They supplied the insurgents that fought against Rhodesia. All throughout Africa. There's countries in South America that were supplied by the Soviet Union. A lot of them via Cuba and China. Then the UN comes in to establish a peace plan. And if Big Brother Soviet Union doesn't like it, they're sitting at the Security Council table. They can raise a red flag and stop the whole process. China too. And they're not afraid to use that power to get what they want. On paper and in theory, the UN's a great idea. The harsh reality, case example, I'll give you one. The Korean conflict started in 1950 when communist North Korea, with the aid of China, rolled south into South Korea, pushing all South Korean and American forces that were in country all the way down to the port of Pusan. And we had to form what was called the Pusan Perimeter and reinforce from there via Japan. And we held that pocket until MacArthur landed at Incheon, and also a large enough force was in Pusan to push north. Of course, MacArthur come across the peninsula and cut off the lines of supply and communication of North Korean armies that were in the south. And then once he unified with the forces coming out of Pusan, they pushed north all the way up to the Yalu River. The Yalu River being the border between North Korea and China. Now, I'm not, let's kill them all and let God sort them out kind of person, but I will tell you this, looking back in retrospect and reading history, MacArthur actually had the right idea going in and blowing up a few Chinese cities. But instead, he was told to stand down, finally got relieved, and had to go fade away. Bottom line, China come across with 100,000 soldiers. Most of them high on opium when they came across the Yalu River, charging. I spoke to a gentleman that was there that day when it happened. So many of the soldiers were so high on opium, he told me one story he had to empty 2 M1 Garand clips into one Chinese soldier before he dropped him. And what finally dropped him was a headshot. The man was so high on opium, couldn't feel no pain. Feel no pain, you keep moving. Long story short is, we see communist involvement, and then as the war progressed and became a stalemate, they started negotiating. And of course, the UN sent in a fighting force. They called all the UN nations together. Now, the bulk of the fighting force came from the United States and Great Britain. But France, Italy, Turkey, Greece, which is kind of ironic because Greece and Turkey don't like each other, but they all brought in forces, UN forces, to fight. Okay? Now, who supplied the majority of those forces? Good old America. Right? I've got a book on Korean War uniforms. And we supplied many of our allies that fought with us their combat uniforms. And it created shortages for our own troops. Okay? Because why? We were a partner with the UN. We said, well, if you get the people here, we'll help equip and supply them. Of course, we did that for France anyway. And when France lost at Dien Bien Phu, they left more U.S. military equipment in Vietnam than almost we did. Now, mind you, they paid for it in a sort of way, I guess. Or not. Got to go back and look. Bottom line is that with the creation of the UN mandates, you see, the UN is the one that insisted really that Korea remain divided in two. Okay? And that's kind of where that went. And that's just one example where the UN got involved, and instead of speaking up for the freedom of all peoples, they decided to listen to their communists instead of kicking them out. That's the other thing. There's been many times other nations have asked that the former Soviet Union and China be kicked off the Security Council. There's even been calls at times to kick them completely out of the UN. Hell, my personal opinion is the United States needs to withdraw from the UN, and they need to take the UN building in New York and send it back over to Belgium. Let them foot the bill. But anyway, my friends, that's all the time I got for right now. Until next time, God bless, take care, stay safe, stay vigilant, stay armed, keep your eyes open, your ear to the ground, your neck on a swivel. Anyway, that's for you, Brother Kyle. And God bless each and every one of you. Stay alert, stay alive. It's your friendly neighborhood old soldier. Out.